So today on A Couple of Pointers podcast, we are lucky enough to have with us Chris Bogue. Welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
Did I pronounce that right? Chris Bogue?
You did.
You spend so much time with people on LinkedIn reading their names that sometimes you don't necessarily get to speak to them that often. So this is a real treat for me.
Yeah, no, I usually embarrass myself terribly when I use people's real names. So the struggle is real, Ricky.
The struggle is real. So now, for the sake of our audience, explain it like I'm 5. What do you do?
I teach business people how to get on video.
Wow. When people summarize it so simply, I'm like, they've thought about this. They've thought about this hard. You teach business people how to get on video. Why would they want to get on video?
Because it's the next best thing to talking to somebody in person.
Right.
Whether you're selling something, if you're a salesperson, if you're a marketer, if you're a storyteller, video allows you to use your vocal inflection, your body language, all the wonderful nonverbal cues you use to communicate meeting face-to-face. Yeah, you have all of those in video. It gives you all these extra storytelling tools.
So it's the most data-rich and feature-rich asynchronous communication method.
Yeah, it is. It is more powerful than we've known. We don't know what to do with it. We have so much power in this little device in our pocket. The business, like the B2B world, has not even begun to scratch the surface of what is possible with video, and neither have I, and I'm way ahead of the rest of them out there in the B2B world, and I have not even begun to explore the possibilities of video and what it can do for sales and marketing.
I saw it come up recently in a report from a sales consultancy called Scaled, where they had the various channels of outbound and the effectiveness of the various channels, and they did this research across a whole lot of companies. They had phone calls, LinkedIn, emails, and for the first time they had video as its own channel as opposed to a tool that you would use via email or on LinkedIn. They had its own channel being video, and it's probably the fastest growing of the channels.
Yes, and I exist because video is a big deal, but business schools don't know how to teach it. They don't teach you how to make little 30-second videos to drive pipeline for sales. They certainly don't teach you how to go on TikTok and make entertaining business content that'll reflect positively on your brand and drive you inbound leads. This is a new frontier, and it's very exciting to me.
Gets me sweating just you talking about getting on TikTok. Like, I'm a dinosaur when it comes to sales, right? Like, I'm in the generation, I didn't grow up with TikTok. Having to make a 30-second video would be like a full day's worth of work for me. How do you help business professionals overcome some of these barriers?
How do I help them overcome some of the barriers? Okay, one, everything's less scary when you have a process.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why sales teams aren't adopting video is they want someone to tell them the correct way to do that. And we haven't put the level of scholarship into that we have for cold calling and cold emailing. Great sales minds have spent generations figuring out how to do an effective sales presentation. The 30-second video thing, they have not really cracked the code for that yet. Once you have a process, once you know how to get up on camera and you're used to saying it, and okay, this is what I tend to say in cold outreach, this is what I tend to say to a warm follow-up, and this is how I ask for a referral. Once you get a couple of those little 30-second scripts internalized to the point where you can improvise around them, it's so much easier. Really, the hardest part is getting started because people feel self-conscious.
That's so interesting. There's so much there I want to unpack. You mentioned a few of the different use cases straight off the bat of how you can use video, where you can use video within a sales cycle. Do you want to just repeat some of those?
Yeah, and I also want you to remember that you don't look a day over 21, Ricky, but I know you're a little bit more of an old schooler,
yeah,
right? And you're not really who I'm thinking about when I'm building these processes. I've actually got my eye on Gen Z. Right? This new workforce, the people that are graduating college right now, they grew up on YouTube. They have a different experience with their screens and being on camera than I do. They're more comfortable at it than I am. If you ask a 22-year-old person, go make a 30-second video, they know how to hold the phone, they know where to put the lights. They already have these. What sales teams don't have is a way to adapt it to their existing processes. What sales teams do is they get a program like Bomb or Loom or Vidyard, and they send out a bunch of 5-minute product demos and a cold email template, and nobody watches it because it's 5 minutes long. It's not very engaging for the audience. The audience didn't ask for it.
They think the platform makes the difference, whereas it's the content that makes the difference.
Right. And this is where I disagree with a lot of the solutions out there for video, including BombBomb and Vidyard and some of these companies that I love, and I love the people who work there. But again, they're teaching people to go send a product demo where the screen is all your product solution and you're in this tiny little bubble in the corner of the screen. And what I actually coach people to do is just get out there for 30 seconds. You're talking straight to the camera and you're just trying to get another meeting on the books, basically. Where the relationship is, you're just trying to bring it to the next step. So maybe you're ready to ask for a meeting. I find it's easier to make my case in a 30-second video than it is when I call someone out of the blue and they say, okay, you got 30 seconds, go. I can be more confident. I can be more doing everything at my own pace on video.
And I'd agree with so much of that. And I think video's incredibly useful. You can control the message. You're in your own environment. You're a lot calmer. You can be yourself. You don't have this metaphorical gun to your head, like when somebody picks up the phone on a cold call and it's live or die with every word that you say.
Yeah. Or, I'll even say the opposite is true, right? So let's say you have a great cold call, right? You have one of those cold calls where you ask for 30 seconds. It's 40 minutes later, you and the prospect are getting along famously. I was always taught in sales, they go, it does not matter if you have the greatest presentation on earth, because the moment you hang up your phone, your prospect now has to go do the selling. They got to go talk to all the other decision makers and they say, hey, this guy called me up and he's got the greatest solution in the world. Here's what we're going to do. And they go, and their boss shoots them down. So what I do with the video is if I'm having a great conversation or I have a meeting and now we've got to bring it to the next decision maker, I go, hey, you know what, Ricky, who else would be involved in this decision? When are you talking to that person next? Get some information. I go, why don't I make them a short intro video? I could just summarize some of the things we talked about here. And would you mind sending that on for me? We have our conversation. But now when I send that video out, I go, hey, Ricky, it was so great meeting you. As a reminder, I know you're working on this. I know you just implemented Bomb. And what I do is I help reps get to this point. So I'm really excited you're going to be talking with Brian on Friday. Let me know if you're open to meet and I'll be reaching out next Monday or whatever.
That's brilliant. That's so clever. Yeah. So I've had this stance for a while now where I've been very skeptical about video in cold outreach for various reasons, primarily being the delivery issues, but beyond delivery issues, I think it's brilliant. But I've had absolutely no qualms, and I thought it's actually been a superpower in the middle funnel and the bottom end of the funnel with things like you just spoke about.
Yes, and so good for show rates. I always say, if you have a sales team and you have a video solution and you have SDRs, who depend on people showing up to meetings to get compensated. You do so much work getting those meetings onto the calendar, right? The cold calling, the cold emailing.
Huge.
If that meeting is coming up and that's your livelihood, send them a video. And just send them a 30-second video. Hey, Ricky, I'm so looking forward to speaking with you on Monday afternoon. We're going to be talking about X and Y and Z. So here's a question I want you to keep in mind. I'll see you at 3 p.m.
It's great that because it's the same message that you'd send over email, but now because you're putting a human face to it, they can pick up on that emotion. They can also start relating to you as a human as opposed to a product or just a thing trying to sell to them. It creates a little bit of empathy. They can see that you're excited to meet them and now they don't want to disappoint you, even if that's subconsciously. I think that's a brilliant use case. There's so many of these brilliant use cases. What are some of the others? So helping multi-thread you've brought up to increase your show rates. Could we talk a little bit about how you use it in prospecting and what you've, quite practical, right? Do you send it over LinkedIn? Do you send it over email? Do you send it on a CD and post it to them? Like, how are you actually using it in prospecting?
Typically I use it in LinkedIn. I prefer LinkedIn just because I'm sure I'm not going to go to a spam filter.
Yeah, you overcome that delivery issue.
Yeah, I have a classification system I recommend my clients use, and I classify my leads as either green, yellow, or red. So
seems simple.
If it's green, that means there's a greater than 50-50 chance that this person's going to close. Or if I'm an SDR, it's greater than 50% chance I'm going to get a meeting out of them. If they're green, the question is like, why are they not closed yet? I run my own business, so if they're green, that means they've already expressed that they're okay, like, with the idea of paying me for my services. So if they're green, it's greater than a coin flip chance, got to get them in the pipeline, right? Got to get them closed. Yellow is 50-50. Yellow is, I don't know. They fit my ICP. They have the right job title. They have decision-making power. I've not gathered any clues as to which way they're going to go. Literal coin flip, right? Red are people who have turned me down. They've said no. They've rejected me somehow. So I tell, when I'm coaching people, I'm like, I don't send videos to red leads. I just don't. And I always tell my clients, I'm like, I never ever want you to put the effort into creating a video that does not get watched. But if you've got these accounts and they're important, and especially if you're in an SDR role or an AE role and you really feel you've got that one shot for the first impression, yeah, you put your VIPs down on a list and you do, I say start with 5 at a time. The average sales rep should be able to create and send 5 videos in about an hour or two. I say 5 to 10 videos in an hour or two. It shouldn't take you longer than that. And when you've got the list in front of you and you know their name, you know their company, you know their job title, you don't really have to say much because you're not selling your solution, you're selling the conversation. And it's just, hey, Ricky, I see you out there. I know you're working on this. I would say get them on their goals, their values, or an elephant in the room problem. So I see you're doing this. I know you're striving towards this. I see your sales reps are saying this. And I want to have a conversation with you because that's my specialty. I help sales teams get these videos out faster and quicker and more effectively. So if you're interested in having that conversation, respond to this message with anything. That's my CTA. I go very soft CTA, especially if it's cold outreach. I go respond to this message with anything. If you want to make it easy, if you send me a thumbs up emoji, I'll send you some available times so you can choose one that's good for you. And if it's not something you're interested in, please just let me know too. I don't take it personally. I'll just mark that you're not interested for now. But no matter what, thanks for watching the video and I hope to talk to you soon. 45 seconds maximum.
Brilliant. Now, I want to get onto some hairy topics around video, and I'd love your opinion on it.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about some of the reasons why people don't like video, right, as senders. And these are theories that I have. I'm a very fortunate individual where I fall into that middle-aged white male category who comes from a place that has opportunity, live in Australia. Do you feel like people who maybe don't meet the brief, have accents, maybe have some slight speech impediments, maybe don't look what society might call aesthetically pleasing, those sorts of things, do you think that there's some biases there and reluctance for them to get on video?
I would say that self-consciousness about one's appearance is the largest barrier to getting on video regularly. For everybody, including me. When you're putting your appearance out there for public consumption, it is extremely natural to worry about how you look, but that's not what your audience is thinking about. If you go out there and look at the top 100 creators on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, they're all ages, all races, all ethnicities, all body types. The thing your audience most cares about is if you're saying something that is relevant to them.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
And I believe it to be true. I can't say that it's factual because I'm also not in the category of people that might be discriminated against. Now, how do you find companies can help their team members? Because as a sales lead, I could be like, oh, great, I want my team on video. But now I've got to convince 10 other people to get on video.
So most of the teams I'm talking to have already spent substantial money adopting one of these video solutions, right? So if you had to actually make a financial case, you show them how much money they're spending and show them how few videos are actually getting made. They really should be putting more thought into this. And I would say to any sales leader out there, you would never accept an R who makes 5 phone calls and says, you know what? I tried 5 calls, it didn't work. I guess the phone doesn't work. You would tell them to go try more, or you would help them make better cold calls. But some of these sales leaders make 5 videos and get no results and they give up, because they just don't know how to do it. As far as the data goes, I was actually very inspired to go down this road because of a political study I saw. I don't talk about politics. My business has nothing to do with politics. I don't talk about politics on LinkedIn, but I was obsessed with this study because they were studying the 2020 election in the United States.
Interesting election.
And they were very interesting election. And they were trying to figure out what changes a person's mind. So they were studying swing voters, people who voted for one party in 2016 and then voted for the opposite party in 2020. So very small percentage of the electorate, very important to the outcome. And they found it did not matter if that person was voting for Joe Biden or if they were voting for Donald Trump. The ads that were full of celebrities, the ads that had too many special effects that looked like something out of a Hollywood movie, voters overwhelmingly did not trust the information in those ads.
Very interesting.
And they found that the most effective ads for changing somebody's mind was a person talking straight to the camera, a regular person. And again, did not matter the party.
It makes sense.
Yeah. And I say this generation is different, but it's not even just this generation. People don't trust the media. People don't trust politicians. People don't trust institutions.
They trusted salespeople.
No, but they trust the people they interact with every day. You know, whether that's on social media. I always say we're competing for one screen here. I have all these business people who tell me, you know what, the people I'm selling to, they're not video people. They don't like entertainment. They sell serious financial products. And I'm like, gang, we're all on one device here. Your SDRs are competing with Netflix and Disney Plus and Hulu. And also with your prospects, friends and family. Their kids are FaceTiming them while your team is emailing them. You know, so you can
be a serious lawyer, be in the kind of industry that doesn't typically use video as part of their daily sales or marketing motions. But I can tell you that lawyer's still watching TikTok when he's on the toilet.
Yeah. And people forget, because I do a lot of funny content on LinkedIn and I do a lot of really high production video on there. And sometimes people don't realize that when I discovered I was good on video, I was not doing comedy. I was on a 3-year comedy dry spell. And I was selling education technology to university. I had a quota to hit. I wasn't going out there and making jokes on video. I had to sell to PhDs. Okay. So I was turning on the video and I was talking about critical thinking. I was talking about their pedagogy. I was talking about trends that I knew other professors in their discipline were talking about. And so I don't have a PhD. I was nobody. But all of a sudden I showed up on their phone talking about the things they cared about. And they would take a meeting with me and they'd be like, how long have you been teaching for? And I'm like, oh, I'm not a college professor. But they didn't know. They didn't know.
I do know about pedagogy.
Yeah, again, and that's the sales thing. You're a sales guy, so you want the prospect to do most of the talking. I never said, oh, I'm going to teach you this new pedagogy. I said, why don't you teach me about critical thinking? Is it important? What role does critical thinking play in your class? And they'd go, oh yeah, critical thinking, blah, 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 blah. And I'd go, okay, can you tell me about the assignments that practice your students' critical thinking? Silence. They just sit there. So they don't have a good answer. And then you come in there and go, yeah, of course, you've got 500 students. Of course you're not practicing critical thinking. Here's how we do critical thinking with 500 students.
So what you're covering now is interesting to me. And it's an important distinction that video is not a sales methodology. Like the methodology that you've just described, you were being provocative. You were doing provocative selling and maybe leading towards a consultative sell. And video doesn't change that. Video is just a means of communication where you have a greater likelihood of influencing the person you're communicating with or them understanding or appreciating your message. And it doesn't change the fact that you need to be a great seller, that you need to know to use video to get into multi-threading. What I think you're bringing is just this education and this awareness around how you can use video effectively and where it may even be more effective than text, email, or a phone call, and just giving people some structure to that.
Yeah. And this, I think sales leaders get afraid because they think they have to throw out everything they're doing. And I really just use it as like an accelerant. You think about, like when I was doing that sale, we constantly were changing through new marketing people. It was new marketing templates all the time. We were in the spam folder. Yeah. Stuff was sloppy. The personalization was always breaking. And these are people who had been telling my company no for several years. I had to be pitching people because your accounts didn't change that much. These were people who had very recently said no thanks, but I had to hit my quota anyway. And I found being able to humanize, even sometimes I would be horrified by some of these marketing emails that would go out. And I can't unsend them because my marketing team did that. And that's my name and my picture in the signature. So I would just bury it with my own marketing email. I would write to that professor directly or that department head directly or whoever I was trying to sell to at the time.
You're making me feel nauseous with that old disconnect between marketing and selling, where marketing was controlling this message that the sellers had to deliver, and they didn't agree on the message. You're embarrassed of what marketing sending out, and marketing thinks the sellers don't understand the product, its value, or its audience.
Right, and so then I can make make a video though. And I would do that. And again, I'm a funny guy, so I like playing with the really human moments in there. But I would just send a video being like, hey, Dr. Pearl, I'm the guy that sent you a bunch of emails last quarter. I might have gone a little overboard, and for that I apologize. But here's why I did that. Here's why I'm interested in speaking with you specifically. I've been working with Dr. Davis. We've been doing blah, blah, blah. And you just use it to cut through the awkwardness. And if it would go to a spam filter, I would call them. Because remember, I'm an old sales guy too. I am not afraid to pick up the phone. I just don't want to do it inefficiently. But I always say, if you send an email and it's got a video in it and they don't watch the video, your job is to get them to watch it. And so I would call. Maybe I would need to leave a voicemail. Maybe I'd get them. But I'd be like, hey, Dr. Pearl, I just sent an email over. It had the subject line here. I did record a video for you because I had something I want to talk to you about, and I wanted to make sure it didn't get sent to your spam filter. So keep an eye out for that. Let me know if you have any thoughts, and I'll be reaching out next week.
It creates intrigue. Again, I want to know what was in that bloody video.
I experimented with a bunch of things. It's funny too because I was doing my stuff, but I try to get Inception like on when I'm doing sales. So I was selling into a new campus where our competitors had a very strong advantage. They had a university-wide agreement where students could adopt their solution for free, whereas students would need to spend $25 to adopt the solution I was selling.
So a very strong incumbent.
So I actually looked through that company and I found their video content. I was looking up their company, and the sales rep who was managing that territory was total Chad, right? Total frat guy, perfect jawline, perfectly tucked shirt, ironed jeans. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to show up not looking like this guy. And I put on a sweater. My background was a little messier. I showed up on camera looking more like a college professor.
Yeah.
And I experimented too. I had a very talented account manager who I was working with, and I shot some videos with her too, because I feel like customer successes are often the unsung heroes in B2B. They're people with high emotional intelligence. Yeah. They work themselves to the bone, keeping their customers happy and getting renewals.
Well, all of the value in SaaS is in the expand. So customer success is, in my mind, one of the fastest growing and most relevant areas within sales.
Yes, and she was very just studious. She was very just on the ball. She had a very good on-camera personality. And it was funny because we would send these sequences out, and there's a type of professor that comes to the United States, but they're originally from China, or they were from a different country, and they come to the United States, and the first thing they do is they change their name because people mispronounce their name. Yeah, they westernize it. These were the people that would never, ever open my emails. But my account manager, she spoke Mandarin, and she just looked different from me. She had a different look to her. And so I got 30 seconds of video of her. She wasn't doing the personalized ones, but it was her just being like, hey, my name's Grace. I work with all the professors here at the University of Southern California personally, and I wanted to introduce myself to you. So I made a template with her introducing herself and the work she does with our professors, and I sent it out, and all of a sudden, those professors that would never set demos with me started setting demos. Why? Because the speaker resonated with them.
Listen, I'm involved in a climate charity, and one of the core tenets of what we do and why we exist is that the message is now very clear. There's universal agreement on the issues, but people still aren't understanding the message or adopting it. And the biggest problem is the messenger, not the message. So very often it is who they are hearing the message from makes the difference. And I completely appreciate how you use that to your advantage from people within your team. So if we get a bit practical now, somebody's listening to this, they are a sales leader. They've got a small team of 5, team of 10. How do they get their team started? How do they create this universal language? How do they create a process where everyone understands this is what's expected from them, but also this is how they are now enabled to use video effectively?
Yeah, I would treat it as a team sport. What I don't recommend is everybody goes off and does their own thing and hopes for the best. Oftentimes, these teams that adopt these video solutions, there are a handful of reps who adopt it and do well with it, and then there's a handful of them that don't. So I recommend companies, and if a company pays for my full package, you want to build a certification process. right? Much like AEs can't run demos until they've been demo certified, I say don't be having your SDRs send videos out until they can pass your certification process and prove that they can speak in the company voice and they can keep it shorter than a minute.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, but I say treat it like a team sport. And first of all, take a look at like, when are you not? So Friday afternoon, perfect example. Maybe you're not hitting the phones as hard. That's a perfect time.
Sorry, carry on. I was going to say Friday afternoon's the perfect time to call because everyone else is busy making videos.
Yeah, no, they're never making videos. They don't do that. Again, if your team doesn't typically do the output then anyway, then you got to set a goal. I say you put an hour or two on the calendar and you say, okay, the first hour, we're going to make your list of 10 and then we're just going to shoot them. And I always say, I've worked with a lot of people who are nervous on camera. I always say it's better to have the footage than to not have the footage. If you record 10 takes back to back of you being like, hey, Ricky, hey, Mary, you got a 10-minute file and you got all these pitches on there, you could decide not to send it if you don't want to.
Get practice making it.
Yeah. Yep. And again, 5 in an hour, 10 in an hour, you have to have a goal. You have to have a list and tell yourself, okay, when I get through these people, I'm done and I'm going to send it out, because you could always improve from there.
Do companies usually start with saying, we want to use video at this stage within the sales cycle? For example, we're going to use it before the demo as a little bit of giving over some information so that we can keep our demos shorter, so that they've seen the actual product and we can just discuss more of their practical use case. Do companies decide this is where we're going to use video and how we're going to use video? Or is it more they often just say, hey, we want to start doing video and then look at bringing it in everywhere?
Yeah, they're always just winging it. They're always like, oh, we're just going to start. We're just figuring it out. We still got to do a lot on the phones and everything too. And again, it drives me nuts because I've done sales for long enough where it's, okay, you would know that's a bad idea if you were doing cold calling. If your boss was like, how many calls are you going to make a week? And you're like, we don't really understand phones, so who knows? We're just going to mess around and hope for the best. That's not a formula for success.
Can I ask you now, your course, what does it cover? Does it cover how to implement video for a company, or is it more for an individual contributor on how to use videos effectively?
It's for both. So I've done both sides of the coin. I've done video as a founder, owner of his own company, and I've also done video as a sales rep. So I set expectations throughout the course. The course is about 2.5 hours. It's over 6 modules. It's 40-something lessons. It moves fast, but I break it down into sections. So there's on-camera performance is a whole module, right? Where do you put the lights? How far away should you be sitting? Where should you look as you speak? How do you get that conversational tone? That's a module. The sales strategy is a whole nother module. Okay, it's a game more of who should get a video in the first place. And there's a number of ways to do that. I have downloadable lists and everything for how you can actually build your list and figure out your plan of attack. When there's the script writing, I advise people to write in bullet points because they allow you to stay on message while also allowing you to improvise. So there's a whole module. What do you say in cold outreach versus a referral versus a renewal versus a quote? There's all these different stages in the pipeline. You should get your little template for each of those. And then there's the editing and the outbound. So all my videos have captions, but the captions I do substantially better in all my video output because I have captions on there. Most people don't caption their stuff. So I show you, hey, here's how I do it. Here's how I edit it in a really efficient way. Here's how I manage my data so I don't run out of data. And then it ends with how do you send them out on LinkedIn versus how you send them out on Gmail. And by the end of the course, even if you have no sales experience whatsoever, you will have a process. You will have 25 videos shot, filmed, edited, captioned, and delivered to your prospects.
I mean, that just seems like brilliant. But of course it's brilliant because you've identified this problem and you've put a whole lot of concentrated thought towards how do I solve this problem for companies? How do I help them implement this? How do I help people become effective with videos? And that's incredible. So it takes it from zero to hero. If you don't mind me asking, I'm sure it's not confidential, what does a course like this cost?
$250 US.
It's my own podcast. So I don't know if I'm allowed to swear. Fuck off. So $250, you can... Yeah. I pay, I pay more than that I waste more than that on very often trying to implement different marketing strategies. And so $250 per person, and they get to learn all of this, and essentially you just upgrade your team's efficiencies, outcomes that you're going to get from your sales team, essentially. Yeah. So you've got everything you need to build that process. You've watched me. I do it in real time with you. I have this very show, don't tell kind of style. And it's funny. I even put sketch comedy in there because I'm a sketch comedian and I know how hard it is to get someone to complete a course. So every module ends
with a comedy sketch that pulls you into the next lesson. I actually use that to pull the student into each lesson. You get done with the on camera, we go, okay, now we're doing the sales part, and here's why you need that. And
it's great professional development for the team, makes that it probably just in its value and increasing retention for your team members, them feeling, wow, I've actually learned a new skill here, will help me.
Yeah. And again, it's not anybody can do it. If you start talking to your camera, it was like a filmmaker friend told me this when I started out. When I started making videos, I sent it to a lot of people I know who do professional content and filmmakers. And he's like, Chris, it's this trick where if you want to make someone look smart on camera, have their face nice and big on the screen. And if you want to make them look stupid, just have them sit really far away from the camera and look small.
Wow. Okay. So I'm not doing a great job here. I'm too far from the camera. I better get this course. Even when you're talking about like, how do you film it and add captions? I'm thinking like, I know how I'd do it, but I just want to know what the best way is. How to send it then on LinkedIn versus how to sending it in an email. Oh, I know how I would do it, but I just want to know what the best way is. Am I like wasting a hell of a lot of time? Yeah, because I spend a lot of my time making videos. Every proposal that I send out has an embedded video. For the too long didn't read, here's a massive fuck off proposal, but here's a video of me explaining. And so like I use video, and I've always used video further in the funnel. I haven't used it much higher up in the funnel, or like very top of funnel. But I just want to know if I'm doing it right. To me, it's worth it just for that sake. If I'm spending 10 hours a month doing something, for $250, you're just going to show me the way, I'm sold.
Thank you. Yeah, you can pick it up at chrisbogue.io. And this is, again, I'm all just about solving the problem. And I see there's a whole world emerging of people who are just selling looks different than it used to. And I always say it's like, yeah, and in some ways, sometimes it feels like what I'm doing is quite new. But also sometimes it feels like we're just going back to a bygone time when you could walk up to someone and shake their hand and introduce yourself. I'm just really doing a little bit more sophisticated version of what they did before companies had security that would stop you from walking into the building. I always say it's like LinkedIn is a playground for me. I've got all these leaders of industry, I've got CEOs, I've got heads of sales enablement, and I can control the way I'm introduced. I have so much control over my first and last impression. Yeah, and amazing. Again, to me, this is such a game changer, and I think it's going to be a little while before B2B really catches on to what's possible here. Yeah. And that's why I'm always just trying to show them.
I think it's speeding up quickly, and you're on the right end. You're on the right end of this change. A quick little tidbit. Let's just do two quick things if you don't mind.
Sure.
One, for our customers, maybe they can get a little bit of gold without having to download the course. Do you ever send native video, like use LinkedIn to record your video directly on LinkedIn, or you're always recording externally and transferring it on?
Yeah, I always record it externally. If you're a sales leader, I would recommend using a program like BombBomb or Vidyard, because then you can track. It's a lot easier when you can track your results, when you can see if they're watching the full thing. If I send a video and someone watches it 2 or 3 times, I know I'm up here. I know I can make that cold call because they're thinking about me. If that video gets opened 10 plus times, I can assume they probably just shared it in a Slack channel or in an email with the rest of their team. So I can say, okay, it looks like the team is discussing this. And you can get a lot of insight as to, and again, if you see it 0%, maybe you've got to do some extra work. Maybe you got to pick up the phone. Maybe you got to go reach out and make sure that person picks up the phone. But again, now it's not, hey, sorry to bother you. You weren't expecting this call. Can I have 17 seconds? It's, hey, Ricky, I don't know if you got a chance to see, I sent you a video yesterday and I want to see what you thought of that.
It still falls into that classic outbound strategy of using all of your channels to point to the other channels. Like when you phone them, you can reference the email, or when you send them an email, you can say, hey, I tried to call. And it creates a sense of familiarity, even though the first touch wasn't actually a touch. Great that you can do that as well with video. Tell me quickly, do marketers take your course, or is this purely for salespeople?
This one's purely for salespeople. So I am releasing a marketing course next year. It's going to be a companion piece to this, because good content marketing does make sales easier. So I am going to be releasing a companion course called Scene Partners. So that is going to be a course where I teach improv. I have a very improvisational style to content creation because I was a comedian in Chicago's Second City for a long time. And yeah, that's going to be a fun course because you can take it and you're going to be able to film 30 days worth of video content, but there's going to be suggestions throughout it. It's going to be like an improv exercise thing where, 5 options appear on the screen and you can choose one and that's your idea generator. So I'm actually creating it so you can take the course multiple times and create multiple months worth of different content. So that is the next project that's going to be working hand in hand with the sales course, because a lot of people are going their own way. They're building their operating system, they're building their yacht for their yacht, whatever it is, whatever their SaaS company or whatever.
Does your course go into that social selling? Because we're seeing some of that where sellers are starting to create content for LinkedIn around their product. So is that the second course that you're talking about?
Yeah, and I touch a bit on social selling in this one too. So I don't really go into the content creation, but I do recommend using content to get in front of your decision makers. So I say I practice something that I call consent-based selling. And what that means is if I want to sell to a head of sales, first I look at what their content team is doing, because content exists to be interacted with. So if I want to start selling to a company, first I figure out who's posting content, who's doing social, who's doing LinkedIn, who's putting stuff out there. I start leaving comments. I start getting into the conversation that's already happening. Then I connect with those people. I say, hey, I appreciate our interaction in the comments. Hope we can connect. Once I'm in there, then I can start going after sales leadership. And now it's not, hey, here's my pitch slab. It's, hey, Ricky, I've been following your marketing team. I really respect the way you're all striving towards X and Y and Z. Hope we can connect. At that point, I'm looking for the buying signals. I'm looking for if we're having good interactions there. But now when I send that video, it's not, hey, I'm some schmuck. It's, hey, I've been following you. I've been watching the content you're putting out there. I've been watching what your sales team has been saying out there. And here's why I think it would be a good idea for you and I to meet. But again, you don't have to be creating content to do that. No. You have to keep an eye on, what does this business want people to think? How do they want to be perceived? Because that's all marketing is. They're paying to be perceived a certain way. So if you go in there and perceive them the way they want to be perceived, that's a good first impression. I think that's always a solid first touch point. However you want to do that.
That's really smart. And I'd be excited to see your second course when you do get into some of that content creation, because content is a challenge for me, as it is for so many people who are selling online. Obviously, the services Pointer sells is quite unique in that every single one of our reps sells a different product for a different company and different effects. Some of our customers are on LinkedIn, or their customers are on LinkedIn, some aren't. But I'd love to upskill the team on a technique like this so that no matter what they're trying to sell, they understand how to use video, how to engage with video, where they can use video, and how that can increase their likelihood of positive outcomes. Because at the end of the day, that's all we're trying to do. I see sales reps every day. 70% of them are failing, but I can promise you only 10% of them are failing because they aren't putting in the effort. All the rest of them are trying their bloody hardest to succeed, and just their knife isn't sharp enough to cut through.
Yeah.
Learning how to do video is definitely one way to hone that edge and let them get to where they want to go.
Yeah, and so many of the techniques are rather simple. I did this because, unlike most sellers, I've done some TV work. I did a little bit of work on national TV, and I also did some web series, and I've just had a lot of experience in front of the camera. And a lot of what the course is about is, I see a lot of sales trainers, they teach you to be big and presentational. It's almost like they're in front of the live room with 500 people, and they're trying to project to the cheap seats so everyone can hear them. And I'm like, gang, this microphone is really good. If you just speak to them like they're sitting across the table from you drinking coffee.
Yeah.
They literally are. They're at home in their pajama pants right now.
Yeah, I love that. And you can do all of those things. And you just need an expert to teach you how, if I'm standing here and I'm talking loud, how it sounds. And if I get up really close and talk to you like this, it creates a completely different experience for you. Whereas I could be saying the same thing, but I've just changed some slight inflections, some different techniques. And all of a sudden I'm impacting you different emotionally in different ways.
Yeah. And again, and people overthink it. They overthink it.
I've got so much to learn from you. This is something that you're an expert on and I am not. And that's what I like. I like finding people that are significantly better than me at something and learning that something from them. And if I could be half as good as you on video, I would be better off as a seller. My team would be better off. So it's been a real pleasure learning from you for this hour, at least to learn where some of my gaps are. And you've stirred up a lot of thoughts on how we can use video better. And formalize it as part of our process to say, this is something we can do to ensure a higher show rate as an SDR. And this is something we can do after a discovery call to try multi-thread before a demo. And this is something we could do after a demo to consolidate the value proposition to enable them for internal selling as they're going to go through their buying committee, etc. And I love that thought. I genuinely love it. And it's something that's I need to implement. And I'm sure a lot of people listening to this would benefit from too.
Thank you. I want to leave your audience with one last tip, one last pointer, especially if you're an SDR. Use your calendar. Again, there's people who overthink this. If you're worried about your show rates, if you have to get next week's meetings on there, the easiest way to do videos is you just pull up your calendar and say literally who needs to show up next week. And you just do it one by one. You can make them 15 seconds long. Hey, Danny, I know we're meeting on Tuesday. I'm going to see you at 3 p.m. Whatever it is. Again, I didn't have to go through and think of a bunch of things. I pulled up next week's calendar. You spend 5 minutes just firing them off real quick. Again, SDRs, 2, 3, 4 extra meetings converting each week. That's a huge deal. And you could do it in 5 minutes. You just got to get a little bit more focused on who you're sending them to. But it does not have to be a crazy, complicated thing. It's probably a lot simpler than you realize.
Well, that's a hot tip, something people could implement today to be better off. Chris, I've thoroughly enjoyed this. Thank you for coming on, and hopefully I'll get to chat to you again soon, certainly about your next course when that comes out. If people want to get hold of you, where do they find you?
You can go to chrisbogue.io. That's the best place to buy my course. You can also find me on LinkedIn. So if you just look up Chris Bogue, I'm a content creator. I put content about video and sales all the time. A lot of it is funny. So you can go check me out and ring my bell. You can also find me on TikTok at Chris Sells His Soul and on Twitter at Chris Sells Soul.
So we've only got YouTube shorts missing.
I am on YouTube. Yeah, I'm on YouTube. I'm on like everywhere. You can find me on YouTube. I do YouTube shorts. I do longer YouTube videos.
ChrisBogue.io. That's where we want to go. And LinkedIn, TikTok, wherever else they can find you. And fantastic. Hopefully people get hold of you. And I've learned a lot, Chris. Been fantastic having you on. And we'll chat again soon.
Thanks a lot, Ricky.
Cheers.
Great being here.
Cheers, man.